All right, good morning once again, and welcome to day 4 of the online Rankin Technical College AWD1100 C# programming class. All right, today I'm going to go over a couple sets of pretests, and I want to do this really slow, regular basis that you've been having problems with various things. So I'd like to try to hopefully go over those today. All right. And again, a couple people have emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm sorry to keep bothering you." That's part of my job. You're not bothering me. So if you try doing something and whatever you try doing doesn't work, let me know. It really and truly is okay. Now, I am going to talk about GitHub and Git, not right now. I'd rather get in and look at some of the problems that are on that pretest. So I did send you both pretests again. I know you had them already, but I'm just going to get going from there, and I'm going to try to do it slow. I know some of I'm trying to keep up with you, but you're kind of going fast. It's not that I'm trying to go fast, just so you know that. All right, but I'm going to go over these first, these 5 problems here, and then we'll go on and look at the other set. So the first thing I'm going to do is come out here and make a folder that I'm going to call C# pretests. Now, I I am going to do something you haven't seen me do before. Um, I guess I kind of took control myself. They're not getting back to me from GitHub. So I went online and I watched some videos and some other stuff, and I managed to get control back of my GitHub account. So we will be able to start working with that as well today. What I want to show you right now is I want to basically set this up so that I'll be able to use Git and I'll be able to use GitHub. There's different ways that you can do this. There is some Git and GitHub controls built right into Visual Studio. I've tried explaining those in the past, and whenever I have, people get totally confused. So, well, again, what I'm planning on showing you is what I consider to be the easiest way of doing this. Other people may not agree, and that's totally fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to first, before, as we start, I just made this folder called C# pretest. I'm going to open the folder. All right. And you may or may not remember this from day 1 last week, but if I right mouse click on this open folder here, that one of the things that comes up here is it says git bash here. I'm going to choose that option that says git bash here. And it brings up basically what's known as a command line interface right here. And I know that's a little hard to see. I'm making it bigger, but it's showing where I am right now. I'm on my desktop, and on my desktop, okay, hold on. I'm getting a message that somebody cannot get in. Again, let's see, try this. Neat. All right. For those of you who can't get in, I just, sent out another copy of the URL. I don't know what the problem would be. All right. So I'm here. I'm under this folder that's called C# pretest that I just created. And now I'm going to just put in a couple of commands, and actually just one command for right now. You'll notice that this is empty right now. All right. There is literally nothing in there right now. All right. Oh, hopefully you're in. Good. All right. But when I come in here and put in a command, you're going to notice something will be put in there. So I'm going to type in git init. And when I hit enter, you're going to see a folder in there that's called .git, and it's going to look a little washed out. It won't be like a darker yellow like these are. So when I hit enter, there it is. Now, nothing magical happened right there, but it's getting ready for me to be able to work later with Git and GitHub. That's all I want you to know. All right. Okay. So now I'm going to start up Visual Studio as we have been doing. All right. So Studio right now. Between these two pre-tests, there's about 10 problems, something like that in there. So I'm going to put them all together in here. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and create a new project. The first several are console apps. I'm going to choose console app.NET Framework and double click on that. And now it says, what do you want to call this? Well, this is going to be pretest 0101 because it's the first, it's the first problem on the first pretest. All right. Now it says that it's going to put it here, but that's because I had something with that name previously. All right. So I'm going to come back and there's C# pretest right there. All right. So I'm going to select that folder. So there it is. And again, I'm just going to call this folder, this solution, pretest. Now, so what do we have in here as I'm about to click create? First, we have a project. All right, it'll be in its own folder and it'll be called pretest 01_01. All right, that will eventually be put into another folder that's called C# pretests. All right, and remember, projects actually go inside of solutions. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have a folder called C# pretests, and it's right there. In that folder, I'm going to have another folder called pretests that will hold the solution. And in that folder, I will have another folder called pretest 01_01. So just so you see this, I'm going to click create here. All right. And okay, so whoever just got in, I think your microphone is on. So if you could mute that, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so if you look, we've got a folder called C# pretests. And if I open that up, there's another folder called pretests. That's my solution. And in there, there's another folder that's called pretest 0101. That's my project. All right. Now, I could have given them all the same name, but that would have probably been very confusing as I start to add more projects to this. All right. So this is what we have so far. All right. As I mentioned, when you start to build these projects, what happens is the system goes and it adds this stuff in there for you. Now, you'll notice that right now, all of it is gray. All right. And I'm going to get rid of a bunch of it, but I wanted to show you this. And I know we've said a little of this before. If I come in and every time I want to write something on the screen, if I say system.console.writeLine, for example, and I just put in here, writeLine hello as an example. If every single time I'm going to write something on the screen, I say system.console.writeLine, then I can get rid of every one of these, all of them. Well, if I decide I don't want to say system every time, I just want to say console.writeLine, you'll notice I'm not getting an error. And that's because we've got this file right here. All right. And I normally come in and add one more where I say using static system.console. And the reason I like to do that is then all I have to do is put in writeLine. All right. So you've got a bunch of different ways in here that you can do the same thing. I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm just trying to let you know different programmers program in different ways. So you could see any of these three. All right. Now, again, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to copy this vote checker thing. Again, this is what I consider some internal program documentation. So I'm going to put it right here. The program itself is pretty short. All right. So as it says, it's a vote checker. And, again, you can read this as well as I can. This program is going to take an age, and I give you an example as input, and then it'll print something as an example. 20 is old enough to vote, okay? Or 13 is not old enough to vote. Now, we're not going to use these. I'm just putting that in there just so you can see what it's supposed to look like. All right, we're assuming that 18 is the legal voting age, and we're using a constant. Well, let's talk about all that for a second. The first thing is, assume 18 is the legal voting age, all right, and we're going to make that a constant. Well, then typically what you do is right up above main is where you create your constants. A constant is something that cannot change while the program is running. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say declare and initialize program constant. There's only one. All right. And when you set up a constant, you need the keyword const. All right. Then you need to let the system know the type of constant it is. Well, it's going to be a whole number because it's how old you are. So I'm going to put it in as an int. And I'm just going to call this, again, we could call it anything we wanted, but I called mine min voting age and set it equal to 18. Again, what that's saying is the minimum age for somebody to vote is 18. That's all we got in there. All right. So now I'm going to come down here and rather than typing in hello, I'll say something like, please enter your age. Now, I could put a more descriptive message in there if I wanted to. I could say something like, please enter your age, and I'll tell you your voting status. All right. But for now, we'll just leave it at this. Please enter your age. Now, I'm going to put here read line because if I didn't, it would run off the screen. But if right now, if I run this program, this should be all we see. So let's see if indeed that's the case. There it is. Please enter your age. Now you'll notice I screwed up. All right. I made this a right line, which means that my cursor went down to the next line. I like to keep it on this. So I'm going to change it from a right line to a right. And you'll notice if I run it again, the cursor will be over here. All right. So let's make that a right. And let's run the program again. And now you'll notice my cursor's right there, and I can put in whatever I want and hit enter, but it's not doing anything yet. I didn't tell it to do anything. Now, I'm gonna show you something here. I'm gonna show you something in two different ways. When I say this, I'm not trying to confuse you, but I want you to know that people do this stuff in two basic ways. The first way we're going to do it is the way we have been. So I'm going to say string, and I'll call it age, str for age string. And I'm going to set that equal to read line. So whatever number I just put in there, all right, whatever number I just put in there, okay, that's going into age str. Now I want to convert that number to, whatever you put in here. So when I run this, if I put in 32, I want you to understand this. May not make a lot of sense, but I want you to at least try to understand it. When I put that in and hit enter, that's not 32. That is the string 32. It has no arithmetic value. It looks like 32, but it's kind of like, for instance, the address of where I work out of at the Wentzville campus is 755 Parr Road. You know, people a lot of times say 755 par road, but it's not a number. All right. And that's the same thing here. So the next thing we want to do, all right, is we want to convert this. So I'll put even a comment in here that says convert DR to an integer. Okay. So I'm going to say int age equals int 32 dot parse age str. So again, what that is attempting to do is to take that number 32 or whatever I put in and convert it to a whole number. All right. Now I want to show you something, and I'm going to put it in here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right down here, and I'm going to comment it out because otherwise I'm doing the same thing twice. Technically, I don't need this, and I'm going to show you why I don't need that right now. All right. I can come in here and say this int age equal, and I can do kind of what I just did, and that is I can say int 32 dot parse read line. Right? So what am I doing? I'm combining what I had shown you in 2 steps into just 1 step. And I think I've got it right with no errors, but just to be sure for a second, I'm going to comment all this out. I'm going to uncomment it in a minute. And now I'm going to put this in. You'll notice I don't get any error. So the way I put that in was okay. Now, what are the advantages or disadvantages of doing it, let's say, this way as opposed to this way? Well, the way that you see in blue right now, it's only 1 line of code. The way I did it the other way, it's 2 lines of code. But the way I did it the other way, in some ways, at least to most people, would make more sense because we are reading in a string and we do have to try to convert it. Now, with both of these methods I've shown you, doesn't matter which one, in both of these, if I leave it blank or I put anything in there that's non-numeric, all right, the program blows up. It doesn't understand what it is I want to do. And because of the fact that I said it's a whole number, if I put a decimal place in there, it'll also blow up. All right. So it really doesn't matter which of these we use. All right. It really and truly doesn't. But since we've been doing it previously this way, that's why I showed it to you like that. All right. So now I should have a number in here. As long as I put a number in here, okay, I should have a number in here. Now, I'm going to show you something else. I'm first going to show you this the way we would typically do this in here, and that is if age greater than or equal to the minimum voting age. Well, what do you know? You know that you can vote. All right, so I'm going to put a right line in here. And I'm just going to put in something like age dot toString. All right, that'll say like 18 plus is old enough to vote. That's all I'm going to put in here. Okay, with a semicolon on the end. Else, which means that you're not 18, else, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to copy this, but I'm going to change that from is to is not. Now, that is the entire program right there. That's everything. All right, that is your entire program that you can see all of it on the screen. All right, now, how could we make it better? Well, one thing, and we're going to get this when we get to like chapter 5, I think it is, we could put this into a loop so we could keep running it. We haven't gotten there yet. I've shown you a little bit of stuff with loops, but I'm trying not to confuse you. But so you'll notice now, if I come in here and I save this and I run it and I put in 17, 17 is not old enough to vote. If I put in 18, since we said that is our legal age, that says you are old enough to vote. Again, if I leave it empty and just hit enter, I get an exception. We're going to handle that in later chapters. All right, you can't do that. It's trying to take a blank space and convert it into a number. And it doesn't know how to do it because that isn't possible. In the same way, if I run the program and I come in here and I say, hello, I'm going to get the same error. Notice what the error says. Input string was not in a correct format. What that means is it tried to take that and convert it into a number. And it had no idea how to take the word hello and create and convert that into a number. It didn't know how to do that. Now, I just want to show you one more thing in here, and then we'll go on to the next one. There are at least 3 different ways to write this line of code. At least. All right. Now, this is the way most people, especially when they're first starting, write this line of code. But I also want to show you that people who have been programming for a while, all right, typically how they would write this line of code. All right. So, whoops. So again, I'm going to keep the right line in there, but for now, all right, I'm just going to comment it out and put in, like I said, another way of writing it. All right, so let's try that. So it'll again be a right line. Now, what I'm going to use right now, it's a fancy word. It's not my word. All right, but what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to use what's called string interpolation. And what that means is, if you look here, we took our variable age and we didn't put it inside of the double quotes. But in what I'm going to show you right now, it will be. When you use string interpolation like this, you must start it with a $sign. Then inside of your double quotes, I'm going to put in here age. Notice it's in curly braces. And I'm going to say is old enough. Whoops, I don't want it all highlighted. Is old enough to vote. And my double quote. Now that is another way of doing it. There's more ways, but I'm just showing you these 2. All right, so what's the advantage of this one? You pick the side of your double quotes. And what you're going to find, if you remember the other day when we did that calculator program, we had to have like the name of the variable, space, and then like double quote plus double quote space, and then another variable plus double quote equals double quote, etc. Here you can put everything. I could put multiple variables in there. All right, so I'm going to grab this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it down here. And again, I'm going to comment this line out. I just want to make sure it still works exactly the same way. All right, so file, save all, and let's run it again. And before we did 17, 17 is not old enough to vote, and we did 18. 18 is old enough to vote. So again, these are just different ways of doing the same thing. You are going to get 100% of this is going to be saved for you today. All right, but I wanted you to see both of them so that you could see, again, there's different ways of doing this. All right, and if you said to me, well, okay, I get that. Which one's better? There's nothing wrong with using either way. All right, there's nothing wrong with using either way. All right, both of them will work. It's which one do you feel more of a comfort level with? All right, so that's the one I'd use. I mean, when you're first learning this stuff, there's so doggone much to learn. And I get that. But like I said, this to me, I put that in there just to show you. All right. So I think what I'll do is I'll go back and forth, not to confuse you, but I'll use both of them in the examples that are going to be coming up. And then you decide which one you'd rather use. I will tell you that C# programmers 100% of the time use that. Professional programmers, they would never do anything like this. This is considered an easier way of working. Again, if you don't agree, then don't do it that way. All right. So that's the first one. We do a file save all here. Let me close this. All right. I'm going to move this over. And that was my first one, Pretest 0101. I'm going to go to my solution and right mouse click on it. Choose add, new project. It'll be another console app.NET framework. And this one will be Pretest 01_02. All right. So this is the second one that we're going to work on right now. Click create. There it is. First thing I'm going to do, because I usually forget to, is click on the project name, then right mouse click and choose set as startup project, which means that when it starts to run, that's the one. This is the project that I want to have run. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to leave the using system and hit enter and put in using static system.console. All right. And to be honest with you, this static system.console, I don't know if that's in your book or not, but I just kind of got tired of typing that in. So one day I just Googled it and it came up. Some site that I went to said, hey, you can do it that way. And ever since then, I pretty much, when I create console programs, pretty much do it like that. All right. All right. So the second one that we want to do here is convert seconds. All right, now this may look real hard. In fact, these next couple or these next three may look real hard. I'm not going to say they're hard. I'm not going to say they're easy. Again, it's very easy for me to say, oh yeah, they're easy, but I've been doing this for a while. You know, I liken it to this, that you may agree with me on this, you may not. But I remember that I had a friend who became a mechanic. And when he lived in the state that I was in, whenever I needed to do work on my car, I'd go to him. And I watched him one day and he was doing stuff effortlessly. And I said, you just do this stuff and it just becomes natural. And he goes, yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. He said, I've been doing it so long that I don't even have to think about a lot of stuff. It's just natural to me. And that's the way some of this stuff is for me. Not all of it, but at least some of it is for me. All right. All right. So the next one, this says, write a C# console program that takes an integer that represents a number of seconds. All right. And converts it into a number of hours and a number of minutes. Round up if you basically have more, greater than or equal to 30 seconds, and round down if it's less than 30 seconds. And again, just so you know, you'll see this in a second. There's not even 20 lines in this program. It's a very small program. All right. And again, like I said, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in and I'm going to use a string and I'm going to call it sext. That's my string for seconds. And then I'm going to have an int that's going to hold my seconds. I'm going to have another int that's going to hold my minutes. I'm going to have another int that's going to hold my hours. And one last int that I just called what's left, which is probably a dumb name, but it's the one I used. All right. Okay. So what do I want to do here? Well, I want to ask the user to input the number of seconds, right? So I'm going to say write input number of seconds. All right. Now, again, notice that I have on there right and not right line. So I'm going to be on this. I'm going to stay on the same line. And after I type in input number of seconds, that says add a tab. It's literally like you hit your tab key. So sec str equals read line. Okay. What's that doing? That's again taking whatever we're reading, whatever we enter, and then hit enter, and it's putting it into that variable. Now, again, we're going to attempt to convert that. And since, again, this is an integer or a whole number, I'm going to say here is seconds equal int 32 dot parse sec str. All right. That's all I've done so far. Now, what's left, and like I said, there's about 6 or 7 or 8 lines left. I've got to convert it now. So in other words, I'm going to come in here and calculate hours, minutes, and kind of seconds as well. All right. Now, if you do want comments in here, I can put in here input number of seconds. To me, that's a little bit redundant when right underneath here, I say input number of seconds, but it's totally fine to do that. Here I can say convert seconds from string to integer. And remember, an integer is a whole number. Since I'm now using sec str, and you'll notice neither one of those have the underlines anymore. You'll also notice if you look, I didn't initialize any of these. We could have. I could have initialized this to the empty string, this to 0, this to 0, this to 0, and this to 0. Guess what? The way that C# works, if you don't initialize variables like that, that's what they get initialized to. So numbers get initialized to 0, strings get initialized to the empty string, Booleans are true, false, get initialized to false. That's just the way the language works. All right. So one thing about this, think about it. There are 60 minutes in an hour. There are 60 seconds in a minute. All right. 60 times 60 is 3,600. So the hours that I just put in there is equal to our seconds divided by 3,600. That's going to calculate the hours. All right. Now, that's going to calculate the hours, but there'll still be a number left, or there could be a number left. Okay, so that's going to, let's put this to calculate the hours. Okay, then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, figure out what's left. And what's left, that variable that I named, what's left, equals the seconds modulo. Remember, that's the remainder. All right. Now, well, there's only one more thing to do here, and that is to calculate the minutes. That is probably the hardest part of this problem. So minutes equal, now I'm going to put the whole thing in here and I'll explain what I did in a second. What's left plus 30 divided by 60. Now, let's just talk for a second about what the heck is this. Let's use an example. All right, let's use an example. Let's suppose in here, I put in the number 8,000. Okay, so I'm going to put 8,000 in here when I'm asked right there for the number of seconds. I just, there's nothing special about 8,000, but that's what I put in there. All right, so when it figures this out, it's going to figure it out by saying hours equal 8,000 divided by 3,600. And what is that? It's 2 point something. We don't care right now about the point something. The key is we care about the 2. So that, again, the answer to that is going to be 2 point something. But this is the hours. That's exactly what we want. This something that's in there that's what's left. So if it turned out to be, for instance, 2, and well, really, you should know this, the remainder is what? Whatever that remainder is. And if that's 2, it probably is 800. All right. So here we're taking and we're saying what's left is the seconds. All right. 3,600. I'm sorry, 8,000 modulo 3,600. So that is this. Now, what the heck is this? Well, there's 60 seconds in a minute. But what we were told is if you've got part of a minute, you should round up if it's 30 seconds or more into that minute, and round down if it's 10 really to 29 seconds. And that's exactly what I'm doing right here by adding the 30 to it. All right. And again, if you say, well, that doesn't make sense, try to work it out with pencil and paper, if nothing else. All right. So all that's left here is my right line. All right. So output results. Okay. So I'm going to say right line, seconds dot to string plus the word seconds equal plus. So right now, what that's going to say is that's going to say 8,000 seconds equal. All right. And I want to put my hours in here and I want to put my minutes. So hours dot to string plus hours and again a plus, and you don't have to do this, but I'm going to line everything up so you can see everything that goes with everything else here. All right, and it's going to say minutes. Now remember, at the very end here, I must also put in a read line, otherwise it'll fly off the screen. So let's line this up just so you can see what's going with what. All right. So in this example I gave you, I put in 8,000. So it should say 8,000 seconds is equal to 2 hours and then takes that 800, all right, and divides it by 60. So whatever that is for minutes. That's the entire thing. Like I said, I purposely tried to come up with programs that would test you as far as you'd have to think about it, but wasn't that it would blow you away. All right. So let's run it. So file, save all. All right. And let's run this. And again, 8,000. 2 hours and 13 minutes. All right. Now what's 13 minutes? 13 times 60, that actually is 780. So rather than that being 8,000 seconds, it's really 7,780 seconds. All right. Why am I telling you this? Because if I run it again and I put in, for example, 8,200, now you'll notice it's 17 minutes. And if I did it 100 or if I did it 50, etc., it's not going to be perfect the way that this is written. Could we make it perfect? I guess we could. But from what you were asked to do, all right, at least in my humble opinion, this meets the criteria for what we were asked to do. All right. So that's the second one. Now I'm going to do the third one. And when I do that, I'll again use string interpolation here, not to confuse you, but again, to show you there's two ways of doing the same thing. All right. Now with this one, with this example, what we were supposed to do next was almost reverse what you just did. In other words, you were supposed to write a console program that takes two integers, one integer that represents the number of hours and another one that represents the number of minutes, and convert that into the total number of seconds. All right, so that was the next thing that we were asked to do here. So let me close this. Come in here and write, and we'll create our next one. Again, it'll be a console app.NET framework, and this will be Pretest 01 underscore 03. And again, I will come in here and right mouse click on it and choose set as startup project. And again, I'm going to do this. I believe I mentioned this earlier, but in case I did not, if you decide you don't want to do this here, you don't have to. If you don't want to remove what was there before, those ones that were all grayed out, you can leave those in there. They're not hurting anything, but basically what they're doing is they're providing what's typically referred to as code bloat. In other words, there's stuff that's in there in your code that you really don't need. All right. But everybody's different the way they handle this stuff. All right. So the third one here, like I just said, this is convert HMS. Again, write a C# console program that takes two integers representing the number of hours and the number of minutes and converts that into the number of seconds. Put that up here. All right, and you're going to realize, I guess, that it's going to look very similar to the last one. But again, we're going to use some of those new features that I just mentioned to you. What do I mean? I'm not going to have any strings in here. I'm going to say int hours, int minutes, and int seconds. Okay. Now, notice what it already has got in here. Hours equal convert to int 32. All right. And I can use either the convert to int 32 like it asks for there, or I can use an int.parse. Either one of those will work. I'm going to hit that. All right. But above that, I'm going to come in here with my write statement that's going to say enter the number of hours. And again, put a \t in there. So now it's done this. So now hours are again in one line here. We are both converting and doing the reading, or doing the reading and then converting, as opposed to two lines that I did in the last program. All right, now notice they got the same thing for minutes. So again, I'll hit tab and just copy this. And now it's give me the number of minutes. Okay, now all I'm going to do right now is just put in a read line down here. All right, we're not going to print anything out. But again, I just want you to see, notice, enter the number of hours. So if I put in 50, enter the number of minutes. If I put in 12, all I'm trying to show you is it's holding the same information as if we had a string variable in there. All right, that's it. All right, so what we've got to do then is, like I said, so we can put comments in here. Input number of hours. And then put another one in here. There, but I goofed up. So input number of minutes. And here, we'll come down here and we'll say calculate total number of seconds. All right. Now, again, like I said, in many ways, this is kind of the opposite of the program we just wrote. So I'm going to say seconds equal And I don't know if I needed parens all over the place like I have them, but this is how I did it. I said hours times 3,600 plus minutes times 60. Okay. And again, if you remember when we went the other way, we divided for this and we moduloed for that. All right. So I'm going to come in and do my right line. But like I said, in this one, I used the way where we didn't need any strings. All right. But I am going to use string interpolation here. And I'm not doing this to confuse you. Not at all. It's actually the opposite. I want to give you two ways that most programmers do the same thing. And I want you to decide which one makes more sense to you. And that's the one that you should be using. All right. You know, especially those of you that this is your first class, especially those of you where this is your first class, you should be striving right now for understanding. There might be times when there's a way to write a program where you can save a few lines. Who cares? If writing a few more lines means that it is enhancing your understanding, that's what you should be doing right now. All right, at least that's my opinion. All right, so I'm going to come in here with the $sign and the double quote, and I'm going to say again. Now, this is going to be real big, but just bear with me if you would. Hours, hours, and minutes, minutes, seconds. And I realize it's a little hard to read. All right, I can't move this over too much more. That's about it. If we did it the other way, and I'll put the other way in here and then comment it out, but we could have written it in like this. Oops. Right line. And we could have said, what do we have here? Hours dot toString to string plus double quote space hours double quote. All right. And I'll put this over 3 lines just so you can see all of it. Minutes, put a plus sign there so we don't need it down here. And then here we'll say minutes dot toString plus minutes equal seconds dot toString plus seconds. And again, if that is easier for you to understand, that's what you should be using. All right. Now, I could have put this on one line just like I did here. All right. I can't break this one up the way that it's written right here, just so you know, because what goes in a set of double quotes has to be on the same line. All right. But what you should notice now and is I should get the same answer twice. Okay, so let's do a file. I got my read line. So let's do a file save all on here and see if it works. Okay, now I'm going to use the same one I used before, except now I'm going to say what 8,000 was, that was 2 hours. And I don't remember what it was, but it was like 13 minutes, something like that. All right. And you notice I get the same answer for both. This is more exact. This is the true number of seconds. And you'll notice again, I'm getting the same answer. Now, if I go up again, and I put in 2 hours and 14 minutes, now you'll notice it's more than 8,000 seconds. All right. But again, I'm getting the same answer whether I write it using string interpolation or I write it kind of the old bump and grind type of way. And either one of these ways is considered perfectly acceptable. You do it whatever way makes the most sense to you. Like I said, see, people ask, well, what if I'm a professional programmer? All right. Well, if you're a professional programmer, you're probably going to be working on a program, to be fair with you, that's much harder than this. You probably won't even be doing a whole lot of write lines in there, just so you know. But you could potentially do it either way. That's all I'm trying to tell you. All right. Okay. So that's the first three. And again, you're going to get all this code. All right. And I'm going to give it to you in a different way than we've done it before so we can get into Git and GitHub. But the point is, if something in here doesn't make sense to you, you'll have to email me and let me know. All right. Now, let's just suppose for a second that, and it isn't, I get it, but let's pretend for a second that instead of this being a console program, it was a Windows apps program. All right. And now you're sitting there and you're saying, well, I'm going to come in and try to just I'm going to copy what you did. Be real leery copying a lot of stuff. All right. Um, Visual Studio doesn't often work well when you copy things in. I can't show you it on here. You literally could copy everything between the beginning, this curly brace and static main. You could copy every bit of this into yours and it should work. All right. But it's not going to be the same when we get into in a few minutes when we look at doing this with Windows app programs. So let me do a file, save all in here. We're about to take our first break. All right, I'm going to close this and this. I'm going to come in and create pretest 01_04. So again, add project. It will again be as console app. And again, it will be pretest 01_04. All right. And this one, notice what it says. With this one, it says, write a C# console program to input a person's age, then calculate the number of days they've been on the earth as of today. All right. And again, this is not a real long program. I'm not going to do it. I'll do it after the break. But this is probably the shortest one out of all the ones that we've done. In fact, let's do this. So I'm going to copy this. So again, write a C# program to input a person's age, then calculate the number of days they have been on Earth as of today. All right. This one literally, I think there's about 8 lines we have to key in. That's it. All right. So again, what I'll do on this one, kind of like I did on the last one. So here I'm going to input person's age. All right. And I'm going to say, we could do this. We could do this as an int. All right. And if you're 23 years old, whatever, if you want though, let's do it as a decimal. So if you want to say that you're 23.5 years old, you could say that. All right. So I'm going to say decimal age equal decimal dot parse console dot readline. All right. And I want to mention something about this, but I'll wait until after the break. All right. So we've got our age in there. Okay. Decimal, and I just called it days on Earth, equal age. Now, I could have times 3. Probably most people, that's the way they do it. Since every 4 years almost is a leap year, I did 0.25. And again, this is not exact. All right. So what is it like? Days on Earth equals age times, oh, it needs an M on the end because I'm using a decimal. There we go. So now all we have to do is write it. Well, let's come down here first and put in our read line statement so it doesn't fly off the page. And here we'll do our write line. And I'm going to say this, as of today, you have been on Earth. And let's build this as two different strings. I'll make this a write. All right, so you have been on Earth. We'll make this a write line. Or approximately. And then we'll put in here days on Earth. Dot toString plus, and then we'll just put days. All right. So let's assume for a second, I'm going to run this in a second, that you're 2 years old. All right. So file, save all. So I didn't set my startup again. So set as startup project. All right, let's run this. Like something I got in here, so let's look. Decimal age equals decimal dot parse. Oh, I didn't put a write line in here. So I need a write line or write. Please enter your age. Okay, and a semicolon on the end. So let's try it again. Please enter your age, 2. As of today, you've been on this earth for approximately 730 and a half days. 365 times 2 would have given you 730. But because we put the 0.25 in there, all right, if you would want, you could just cut that number off. All right. If you come in here and let's say that you're 55 years old, means you've been on this earth for approximately 20,088 days. Now, what if you didn't like this? You know what I mean? What if you didn't like the fact, I don't want to be like point something days? Then I can do a rounding on this. I can say days on Earth equals math.round days on Earth. All right. And if you say, what did that do? It's easiest to show you. Now notice if I put 55, oops, I put 55 and hit enter. Come on. There. It rounded it up. Okay. So let's take a break because it is 9:03. I'm going to give you 12 minutes. Let's go back in, please. On to the last one that's in this first set of pretests. I'll see you at 9:15. I'll be back. I just have to get water. All right, it's 9:15, so I'm going to continue on. Before we get going, I want to mention two things about this program that I'm not going to say they're real important, but kind of. And that is, first of all, if you take an integer value like this, you'll notice that I continuously keep putting a .toString on the end. But if you're not doing any formatting of the value at all, you really don't need the .toString on there. If I left this off, it would look exactly the same. It's considered good practice because what I'm doing is I'm mixing a string with a number. And that's why running the toString, all right, most people will tell you that that's the way that you should do it, even though it works if you don't. The other thing I wanted to say to you is you may have noticed this, you may not have. All right, I made that a little d. I could make it either a little d or a big D. Either one of them would work. All right, there is a difference between them. This is using the decimal class. The other one technically is not. I don't really want to get into it because we haven't talked about classes, and I don't want to give you another reason to get confused. All right, but either one of these would work. But you'll notice the difference is when I did it with a lowercase, it's blue just like this is, signifying that basically I'm working with it on, for lack of better words, a variable level. When I did it this way, it's kind of an off blue or whatever the color that is, and it's telling me I'm working with it on a class way. Either one will work. All right, it doesn't really matter which one you use. All right. So let's save this. And we've got one more to do on this particular pretest. All right, so I'm going to come into my solution. And again, I'm going to add another new project. And it's going to be a console app. And it'll be pretest 01_05. And let's immediately go and reset or set that as our startup project. All right, and again, as I've been doing, I'm going to get rid of these and put a using static system.console. You don't need to put this line in if you're working on a Windows app. It makes no sense to put it in there unless you are going to be printing something to the screen, which you can do, but it's not done very often. All right. All right, so for the last one that's on here then, write a C# program that takes 4 numbers as input and calculates and prints the smallest number, the largest number, and the average. Okay. All right. So there is our little bit of documentation. Okay. And I'm going to come through here and I'm going to create a double that I'm going to call smallest, another double that I'll call largest, another double that I'll call sum, and one last double that I will call average. All right. And I'll do it more our newfangled way. So I'm just going to say here, input 4 numbers. I mean, I could put in here input number 1, then another comment input number 2, but I'm doing the same thing every time. So console dot, I don't even need the console, sorry. Write, enter number 1. And again, double num1 equals double dot parse console dot readline. 4 times rather than you watching me type. I'll do it like that. And I'll change these to enter number 2, enter number 3, whoops, and enter number 4. Just because that'll save us some time. All right. And when I go and solve this, I'm again going to show you at least a couple different ways of doing it. Again, not because I want to confuse you. All right. I want it to make sense to you. Okay. The first way I could do it, and I'm going to leave this in here, but it's a lot more work than it has to be. All right. So I wouldn't do it this way, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. I'm going to say if num1 is greater than or equal to num2, num1 equals largest. Now I'm not done yet. Okay. Num1 equals largest. What doesn't it like? Their use of this. Oh, now notice it is giving me an error. And it's saying you do have to assign this one. So if I come in here and say equals 0, now that error goes away. And it's because it's being used technically as part of a calculation. So let's take all of these. I'm going to say equals 0. And for the sum, I'll say equals 0. And for the average, I'll say equals 0. Technically, most people would put in 0.0 because since it's a double, it can have a decimal place in it. All right. And again, if you want to line everything up, you can do that as well. Then you can kind of see what's going on here. Okay. Now I'm not done yet. Now I'm going to come in again, and I'm going to say if num3 is greater than largest equal num3. Finally, I have to do it one more time. If num4 is greater than largest, all right, then largest equal num4. Now, let's take a real simple example where we'll look at this, a real simple example. All right, and that is I'm going to come in here, move this over like that, and let's put in 4 numbers. Let's make the last one the biggest. So 45, 56, 23, and 111. All right. So if number 1 is greater than number 2, all right, it's not. So guess what? We didn't account for that. What do I mean? Well, then we have to come in here and say this. Else num2 equal largest. So there was already a flaw in my logic, because if that's num1 and that's num2 and that's num3 and that's num4, is 45 greater than or equal to 56? No. So we skip this. So we want to say num2 is the largest, and it is. All right. So largest, okay, no, this isn't right. If this is reversed. We don't want to reset. We want to say largest equal num1 and largest equal num2. We don't want to change the value of our num1, num2, num3, and num4. So again, is 45 greater than or equal to 56? No. So our largest is it greater than or equal to num2? All right. If it is, okay, so if these had been reversed, if this had been 56 And if this had been 45, then num1 would have been greater than or equal to num2, and largest would have been this, but it's not. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of that. All right, so num2 is the largest. All right, so right now that's the largest. Then we have to say, if num3 is greater than largest, is num3 greater than 56? No. So we're not resetting it. There is no else in there. Then finally, we say, if num4 is greater than largest, is that greater than this? Yes, it is. So largest equal num4. So if I run this program, all right, and then when I get done with this, I say right line, the largest number is \t in there, plus number dot, oops, largest, sorry, dot toString. All right. Now this should work. Let me put a read line in there again so it doesn't fly off the screen. All right. And I'm going to come in and run this. Did I not put a right at the beginning? I thought I did. I did. Right. Enter number 1. Doesn't like something. Stop the run. Enter number 1. Double. No, that should be okay. And let's double check. I thought we already did this, but we'll set that as the startup project. All right. So enter number 1. And again, I'm going to use the same numbers we just had. So you see these 45, 56. So 45, 56, 23, and 111. And it says correctly, the largest number is 111. So that worked. All right. Now I'm going to keep those same numbers there. I'm going to grab everything I just did. So I'm going to say here, calculate largest number. All right. And I'm going to grab everything, copy it. Then right below this, paste it. Now I'm going to say calculate smallest number. And all I have to do is change these greater thans to less thans. And of course, make that smallest. All right. And then right after this, I'll put another one in here that says the smallest number is, and we'll have smallest. And I think I put it in a correct manner, but we'll find out. Take a quick look at it. Whoops, right now, just to be sure. So file, save all. We'll run it again. We'll put in our same 4 numbers, 45, 56, 56, 23, and 111. All right. And we get the largest is 111. The smallest is 23. So it worked. All right. Now, actually doing the sum is pretty easy. And we can do that at any time. But since we did largest, we did smallest, let's do it down here. So calculate the sum. And we're just going to say sum equals num1 plus num2 plus num3 plus num4. All right. Now we can go copy this, and I'll say the sum of 4 numbers is, and I'll put sum here. All right. And this isn't a hard calculation, but let's just bring in the calculator anyway. And we have 45 plus 56 plus 23 plus 111. 235, it looks like. Okay, so let's run this again and see if that's what we get. And again, the numbers 45, 56, 23, and 111. 45, 53, 56, 56, 23, and 111. All right. So that all appears to be, I put it to some reason I don't have one there, but whatever, that's fine. And finally, the average is not difficult either. Now, I do want to mention something to you, and that is, let's pretend for a second we weren't asked to do the sum. We were just asked to do the average. All right? Don't do this, because I've seen people do it before. That's going to give you a wrong answer, because you end up doing this first. You do division before you do addition. So it's going to do that division right there and then add these three numbers to it. All right. But since I've already got the sum, I'll just bring that out there. All right. And I'll copy this. Oops, paste it back in here. And change this to the AVG. Now, this is the only one in what I'm working on that possibly could have a decimal in there, and that isn't, I want the word average. So I am going to put this in here, whoops, in double quotes. I'm going to put in here N2, the meaning I want this to be 2 decimal places. It's like that. All right. So 45, 56, 23, 111, and there we get it. And if I take 58 and multiply that by 4, it's 232. If I take 0.75 and multiply that by 4, it's 3, and 232 plus 3 is 235. So that is one way to solve this. And it's not a terrible way of solving it. It's not like there's something wrong with doing this. All right. But there is a better way of doing it. I can go and replace all of this. And I don't know how many lines it is, what, 55, about almost 20 lines. I can replace this all with one line. And I can replace all of this with one line. All right, I'm going to show you that, but before I do, I'm going to show you where I got that from. And that is, I went out to learn.microsoft.com, which is pretty much where you find just about everything here for C#. And I'm going to type in C# math class. All right, and it'll show, there's the math class. And it'll show some of the stuff that it has in here. And there's things like rounding, absolute value. Notice you can do absolute value in a lot of ways, cosines, sines, etc. And I'm like looking through here, like, what are you going to use from here? Well, if you look, there's both a max and there's a min. All right. And notice it returns the smallest of two numbers. So I've got to do a little bit of, for lack of better words, a kind of a goofy word, but finagling here to get this to work. So I'm going to highlight every bit of this and comment it out. And then I'm going to highlight every bit of this and also comment it out. And try to replace each one of those with one line of code. All right. So this is our largest. All right. And that's going to be equal to math.max. And I'm going to put in here another math.max num1, num2, comma, math.max num3, comma, num4. We'll go over exactly what this means in just a second. But before we do, what I'm going to do is go down to the other one here and just, whoops, and just change that to math.min. All right. So what is this doing? Well, let's just look at this one. This says, give me the biggest number. Back, we'll go this. This says, give me the biggest number of the first two. This says, give me the biggest number of the last two. And this says, give me the biggest number between this one and this one. So in essence, we're doing the same thing that I just showed you. And of course, if I went back to smallest, it would just be the smallest of those two. But again, if I come in here now, I'm going to use my same numbers. So let me do a file save all here. All right, and we'll run this again, bring up the same numbers. And again, 45, 56, 23, and 111. And you'll notice, whoa, smallest, I put something incorrect in there. We'll fix it in a minute. All right, and largest says 23. Whoa, wait a minute, that gave us the smallest. So what did I do? Well, somehow either this is wrong or I did something wrong in here. So let's take a quick look. All right, largest equals math.max of this and this. Okay. I think that's correct. Oh, there you go. That should have said smallest. All right, and I didn't. That's the part of the problems with copy and paste. So let's try it one more time. Get a file, save all, we'll run it. Bring those numbers up again. And they are 45, 56, 23, and 111. And I get the right answers. All right. So quite often when you attempt to do some kind of a mathematical operation, if you're working on it and you're like, this just seems wrong, you might want to go and look through because there might be another way of doing it. All right. All right. Now, let's just very quickly, because I don't want to waste too much time on this, but I want to show you yet another way you could have done this. All right. Now, this is going to look, this is the easiest way because it's one line long. But what if we had 50 numbers in there? You wouldn't want to be doing that. Doesn't work as well for a smaller number of numbers like this. But if we had, let's say, 50 or 100 numbers, it would work better. All right, I'm going to put it in, but I'm going to comment it out because it's actually going to go over some stuff we haven't covered yet, but I just want you to see this. All right, so I'm going to say here, assume num1 is the largest. We don't have to do that, but that's what I'm going to assume. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, oops. Oh, I don't expect that to make a lot of sense to you. So let's just quickly run over it. All right, we're assuming that num1 is the largest. So I should have said that. Largest equal num1. All right, just like that. Now I'm going to tell it to go through there and, all right, we want to do this 3 times. Okay, and actually, let's see, I'm trying to figure out if this is going to work. 3 and 4, less than 4. It's not going to work. Just forget I even said it. This will work, but not until we talk about arrays in chapter 8. I'm not going to go down that road right now. All right, so you've seen here in this 2 different ways of solving the same problem. All right. Now, I'm not going to be so stupid to say to you, yeah, you ever have a problem, you can't figure it out, just go out to learn.microsoft.com because the answer's out there. What I am saying is if you figure out a way to do something, there may be a better way of doing it using some of the built-in things that come in with the program itself. That's all. All right. So we now have gone through the first pretest. So let's take a very quick look at the second one. So file, save all here, and I'm going to close this. I'm not going to start anything new yet or anything. I'm going to just bring the next one up. We went over all 5 of these. All right. And again, when people say to me, okay, I think I'm starting to get this stuff. All right. How do I really know? Well, you know what? One way of doing it is to go back and take this pretest yourself. And you can do it in a lot of different ways. I'm not saying that the way that I did everything on here was the only way of doing it, or the way I did is the best way of doing it. I'm showing you what I think is the easiest way for people to understand of doing it. That's been my goal in here since day 1. All right. Now, this second pretest has got 2 problems in it, and you are supposed to write those as both a GUI and as a console lab. So we'll do both. Now, again, this one is pretty simplistic. All right. You will come in. Here's your form. You've got 1 label, 1 text box, 1 button, and that's another label down here. So 2 labels, text box, and button. All right. And we've got distance converter there on the form. In addition, we're supposed to use a constant that's called feet per yard, or FT per YD. All right. And it's equal to 3. Now, a thing that people mistake, they make a lot of the time, and I'll show it to you in just a minute, but they reverse these. So instead of saying that there's 3 feet in a yard, you're basically saying there's 3 yards in a foot. And you might say, yeah, there were people who took this pretest right here last year that they did it backwards. All right. That's what they told me, at least. So I'm going to just keep going on here. And I'm not going to use the names we asked, but because we're in here. So I'm going to call the next one pretest 01_06. So this one will be a Windows Forms app. And again, it will be pretest 01_06. There it is. I shouldn't have to make this any bigger. I don't believe, at least. I think that's plenty big. I will change the color. Again, you never have to change the color on yours. Do what you want to do. All right. But rename the form right away. And I'm just going to call this FRM distance converter. Hit enter, you should get that message, say yes. Then, as I mentioned to you, it said we were supposed to have a label up on top. So there will be that label. I'm going to immediately go and change the auto size property on that. Okay, so I can make that bigger. And I'm going to change the background color of it and make it a shade darker. All right. Now I'm going to copy this and paste it. That's going to go down here where my answer goes, down there. All right. And if I want, I can do what right now I could come back in here and I can set the text align, for example, to center. I could set the font size. I'll just set all the font size together. All right, so this is going to be a text box right here. And underneath that, we're going to have a button. That's right there. That down and that down. That looks pretty good. It's not too bad. Now I'm going to do a Control A to highlight all these, or again, I could lasso them, and I'm going to change the font size on here. All right, so all that is now done. Looks like these labels should be a little bigger there and there. Looks good enough to me. So this right here, I'm going to center, or not center that, I'm sorry, text align that to the center right there. And this, let's just see what this was all supposed to say here. So distance converter and then distance in feet. So this should say distance converter instead of form 1. So I'm going to single click on the form and I'm going to change the text in there to distance converter. And right up above it, I'm going to change the start position to center screen. So that's done. All right. And then this should have said distance in feet and then convert to YDS. So this should say distance in feet. Now I might have to make that a little bit wider, but that's fine. LBL distance in feet. And it'll say distance in feet. Okay, I guess it is wide enough. And since I made that LBL distance in feet, I'm going to make this one TXT distance in feet. All right, so that's done. And this button, I'm going to make BTN convert to YDS. And for the code on there, I'm going to make it convert to the text I should say. I can tell my interface is done, except I guess I didn't do this. We'll call this LBL result. And we don't need any text in there whatsoever. So I'm going to get rid of that text. Plus, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to make the color in here, the 4 color, which is the color of the text. I'm going to make that white. All right. Like that, of course, just put it back. All right. Now I'm going to do, this time I'll do a Control A, and I'm going to lock this into place by locking my controls. All right. There's only one place where I literally have to come in here and put code. And that should make sense to you. It's going to be in my button. All right. Now, you weren't asked to do this, but we could come in here and we could make 2. Whoops, I got to unlock my controls. We could make 2 more buttons here. Okay, we don't have to do this, but we could have done this as well. And that is, I can come in here and make this one BTN clear. You've seen this before. And the convert to yards, let's make that ampersand convert to yards, so it's got the underscore. This one can be clear, so it's BTN clear already. We'll make it C ampersand LEAR. And this one can be my exit. So it'll be E ampersand XIT, and it'll be BTN exit. Let's again lock this. All right. Now you don't have to do this. This is over and above what you were asked to do. So you wouldn't have to do that. You don't get any more points for doing it. You don't lose any points for not doing it. All right. So this will be our convert. Bring that up and we'll do that in a second. There's our clear and there's our exit. All right. And I'm just going to do these in order. All right. So in this one right here, I'm just going to write a routine underneath it that's called perform conversion, which hasn't been written yet, which is why I'm getting that error. So private void perform conversion. All right. This one, I'm going to do my clear form. Again, I get an error. So let's write it down here as clear, whoops, private void clear form. And for the last one, we'll again say exit program or not. Private void exit program or not. All right, now we're ready to write code. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to just get rid of this. And you'll notice that when you work on a Forms app, you now need this line, using system.windows.forms. Why? Because that is directly related to this. That has everything for a form that you need to use basically defined in it. All right. Now I was told to come in here and I didn't copy this in. I don't think I did, and I should have. All right. And that is, I'm going to copy this right here. So again, I'm going to put a comment up at the top of my code. There it is. I don't need to say anymore. Call it pretest 1.1. Don't need that. All right, the program must contain a constant. We already talked about this, and that holds that. And there's 3 feet in a yard. Create the constant. I even showed you how to do that if you forgot or didn't realize how to do it. And our last one here. All right, so we do need this constant. I'm just going to grab it from there. And then up on the top, all right, I'm going to put here declare and initialize program constant. And there it is. All right. Now, just so you know, there are things that we can do here. All right. And all I want to show you is what we're going to be building towards in the next couple of chapters. If you say I don't understand, just watch if you would, please. I'm going to make a decimal variable here that I'm going to call feet. I'm not going to even give it an initial value. And another one that I'm going to call yards. All right. But the first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to check. And if you put nothing in that text box, I'm just going to return. I'm not going to do anything. So if text box left empty, return. So if txt distance in feet dot text dot trim. And what that does is it removes any spaces at the beginning or at the end. So that if that's equal to nothing, pretty simple, return. All right, and I can already test this. So I can do a file, save all here. I can run this. I didn't, oops, reset that. I didn't set my tab order, any of that other stuff yet. I'm not worried about that for right now. All right. I just want to run it and make sure that if I put nothing in here and I click convert, it just stops. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. All right. But what I can do if I want is I can make sure that my cursor stays there. So I can say txt distance. Yeah, that's what I want. Distance in feet dot focus. All right. So let's try that one more time. It's in there. I'm going to click and notice my cursor stays in there. All right. Okay. So if I get down to here, I know there's something in there, period. I know there's something in there. Now, what we will get to, I haven't shown you this yet, and I'm not going to now. We can check to make sure that it's numeric. It's a little bit more complex, so I don't want to get into it right now and confuse people. So I'm going to just say here feet equals convert dot to decimal. And again, you could just as easily have used decimal dot parse. That would have worked too. All right, txt distance in feet dot text. All right, and then yards equal feet divided by our constant. And then finally, I don't know how I did that, but I did. LBL result dot text equal, and they wanted us to say something like 6 feet equal 2 yards. Okay, so we'll do it like that. And I'll say feet dot to string n2 plus feet plus equal. Oop, that should have been the word. That's the word feet. Sorry. So that's feet. In fact, I can say feet equal right there. All right. And this will be dot to string. And again, I can say n2 plus yards. What I did there, but semicolon. Okay. So that should be everything I've got to do. All right. As far as clearing the form, well, this is pretty easy. I want to clear this. I want to clear this, and I want my cursor to go back there. So that'll be txt distance in feet dot text equals nothing. LBL result dot text equals nothing. And txt distance in feet dot focus. All right. So that's all that. In our exit program or not, am I smart enough to have left this up here? Yes, I did. So I'll bring that in. Same one that I've sent to you and that we've been using. All right, so let's run it and see if it works. In fact, before we do that, let's go in. Okay, we'll again set our accept button to BTN convert to yards. We'll set our cancel button to BTN clear. And we'll set our tab order. Tab order will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so view tab order 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do another view tab order to make the numbers go away and do one more file, save all, and then let's run it. I'm going to go to the code view. There you go. So we can see what it looks like. Again, if we put nothing in there, we stay right there. All right, if we put a 6 in there, 6 feet equal 2 yards, exactly what we were asked to do. The clear works, and there's our cursor. The exit, no, and exit, yes, that works. Now, just so you know, I didn't do this, but we could have taken everything that we wrote in here. All right, in fact, let's do that just so you can see it. All right, I could have come in and done this. LBL result.text equal, and then put in my $sign, double quote, feet equal yards. All right, now in that case, it appears at least as though that's much simpler. All right, so let me comment this out. Let's run it again and make sure that that works. And I can come through here and say colon N2 to put it into 2 decimal places, colon N2. So let's save this, run it again. 6 feet equal 2 yards. All right. So you've got them both in there for lack of better words. All right. So that's that one. All right. Then we're supposed to rewrite that as a console app. There that is. All right. Let's steal a few things from the one we just did. All right, I'm going to steal the comment. All right, and also where we put the constant here. And I can even take my logic here. I can take all this. I don't have to make changes, but that's okay. I'll just grab all this. All right. Now, there'll be errors. Don't worry. We'll get rid of them right away. So decimal feet, decimal yards, that's fine. In fact, we're asked for the number of feet. So we can say decimal feet equal convert dot to decimal. Again, a decimal dot parse would have worked as well. Read line. All right, so there's that one. Yards will be okay in a second. We can do just like we did before, but not say if text box. We'll say if feet left empty, return. So I can just say if feet was equal to nothing. Now, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because that's a number and that's a string. But I can say if feet dot to string is equal to nothing, return. All right. Now, I believe that that's probably not going to work anyway. I think if I leave it blank, it's not going to like it. So I'll leave that just the way it is. All right. So feet equals, we don't have to do any conversion. We've already converted it right here. So we don't need that line. All right. So yards equal feet divided by that. And here, well, we've already got all this nice stuff here written. In fact, we've got both of them written here. Oops. See, there we go. All right, so I'm going to change that back to feet. Sorry. I don't need that, I said. So this one, we could just say feet dot toString. Well, that would be a right line. So right line, feet dot toString feet equals that to yards, yards. That should be okay, but we'll check it in a minute. And this would be a right line as well. All right. And now I could very easily have made a mistake doing all this. There's not showing me any mistakes here. So let's do a file, save all. Try to run it, see what happens. Oh, I need that read line at the bottom. Okay. Again, whoops. Nice, Jeff. Set a startup project. We can now close this that we had from our previous program. And I can close that too. There we go. All right, so we run this. I did not put a write statement before this. So write, please enter feet. All right, please enter feet. 6 feet equal 2 yards, exactly like we had before. All right, and if I comment out this one, and I uncomment these just to make sure I did it right. Okay, and it looks like I did. So you'll see, hopefully, logic is logic. It doesn't matter whether you're doing a console app or whether you're doing a GUI app, it's still the same logic that you're using both times. All right. And the stuff that we're changing is, either we're making it GUI or we're not making it GUI. All right. But this was the same. This check was basically the same. I think let's try leaving it blank. I think I'm going to get an error here, but we'll see. Yeah, it is. Because it's actually, so really putting this in here with this if statement isn't doing anything. I mean, I'll just comment it out because it's really not doing anything. All right. Is there a way? Yes, and it's something we're going to go over, as I've already mentioned, in a later class. We will definitely be going over it. All right. All right. Now, the next one that's here, let's see, where is that? We've already done this one. You might remember it, but I'm going to redo it. Okay. And we'll do an odd and even, and I'll set it up, and then we'll take another break. And when we come back from the break, what I'm going to do is finish this up, but then I'm going to have a bit to say about working with Git and GitHub. And I'm going to want each one of you to try something in a little bit to make sure that it works okay for you. All right. So the next one that's in here, let me grab that again. It's good. I'll just see, use the modulo operator is fine. All right. So yes, I want to save. So add a new project. This will be number 8, and it'll be one more forms app. So this will be pretest 01_08. And again, I'm keeping it simple here. Let's change the name right away to FRM odd or even. I'll change the text on here to is the number odd or even? Okay, sounded like somebody was trying to get in here, so let's see. Hopefully they were, if they were, somebody let them in. All right, and we will change the color of our form. Again, you don't have to do that. Make it that turquoise. That looks good. All right, so when we look here, again, two labels, one text box, one button. Very similar to the one we looked at before. So let's put in our label right there. Okay. And I will again make it one shade darker. And I will again change my auto size to false. Okay, there's that. Then we're going to have a text box below that. And again, we'll make all three of our buttons. So we can have calculate, and we can have clear, and we can have exit. That's about right. And finally, we'll want one more label at the bottom. All right, I'm going to highlight everything, change my size. That's good. I'm going to make this wider. You don't have to, but I'm going to anyway. I like it when mine look a little bit symmetrical. So this, I'm going to kind of, and it didn't look too bad. All right. I'm going to lock my form into place, my controls. So those are, and we want this to say, oh, that's odd number. Well, that's fine. Enter an integer. I'm not going to use the word whole. So enter an integer and show status. And this will be txt enter integer. Let's take this one and center them. Let's take this and center it. All right. This will be the result again, so I'll call it LBL result, and it'll have nothing inside. And finally, these will be our three buttons. So this will be BTN calculate. And it'll have calculate there. This will be BTN clear with clear there. And this last one will be BTN exit with exit there. All right, let's very quickly, now we're taking our break. Right here, I'm going to set my accept button to BTN calculate. I'm going to set my cancel button to BTN clear. I'm going to set my start position to center screen, and I'm going to set my tab order. That'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another view tab order, and file save. All right, and so this will say odd or even, which no, I don't want to do that. So we'll write that down here in just a minute. Okay. This will be our clear, and it'll be clear the form or clear form. And this last one will be our exit. So I always call it exit program or not. And of course, with that one, since I already have it, I can copy that in. Under clear form, it'll be txt enter an integer dot text equals nothing. LBL result dot text equals nothing. And txt enter an integer dot focus. We can quickly test these two. As soon as I set the right form or the right startup. That works. And that works. It is 10:16. Let's come back, please, at 10:26. We'll finish this up, and then we're going to quickly rewrite it as a console app. I'll see you in 10 minutes. All right, it is 10:26, so I'm going to finish this up. And this is it's pretty simple. I'm going to show you, again, two different ways of doing it. Why? Well, one way is the way I'd expect you to do it right now. And the other way is what we're going to learn in a chapter that's going to be coming up shortly. All right. So when we look right here again, just like before, I'm going to say if txt enter an integer dot text dot trim, if it's equal to nothing, just return. There's no sense in going on. All right. So if I get down to here, something was put in there. And again, we are not right now checking to see if what was put in there was valid or not. Okay. So I'm just going to say here, int number equals int32 dot parse txt enter an integer dot text. Okay. And now it's pretty simple. If number modulo 2 equals 0, well, then we know that it's an even number. So whoops, I don't know what I did there. If it's equal to 0, LBL result dot text equal, and what are we supposed to say? The number blank is an odd number or the number blank is an even number. So we'll say the number dot to string else and I'm going to just copy it down and change it from even to odd. Let's save it and try to run it. Three should be odd. 34 should be even. 341 should be odd. 3412 should be even. Looks like it's working. Clear is clearing. Exit, exit. All right. Now, before we go on, I want to show you another way we could write this. All right. And I'm doing it off the top of my head, but I think I can do it without making a mistake. We'll find out. So I'm going to comment that out. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, make a string here. We're just going to call result equal. I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to show you. Now, this isn't a great way to show it to you, so I'm not going to show it to you. It's called the question mark colon operator. We're going to get to it in a later chapter, but this is a bad way of using it. So, all right. All right, so you saw that again. That's pretty simple. And again, I'm just going to grab my logic here and I'm going to copy it. Okay, do a file save all here. And let's close all this. And we will do our last one here. All right. And this last one will be pretest 01_09. All right. And as always, I'm going to bring this in here. I'm going to just comment this whole thing out, but I'm going to bring it all in as a big comment. All right, and I'm going to bring in the actual comment that I put in on the other one too. Oh, I didn't put in the comment. Okay, we'll do that then. All right. Now let's see what we can use from this. So all I did was copy in everything we had from the hard or from the GUI copy. Well, we're not going to do this. We're not going to check because that didn't work. So we can say int number equal int32.parse, and we'll put a read line here. But again, first we want to put in, whoops. First, we want to put in a write statement that says enter a number. All right. If the number modulo 2 equals 0, we can just do a write line here that says the number is an even number. Else, we'll do a write line here that says the number is an odd number. All right. And well, I don't know how I got that, but I did. So let's get rid of that. And let's try it. Oh, I need a read line at the bottom. Three is odd. 34 is even. 341 should be odd. And 3412 should be even. Looks like it's working fine. So you can see, again, I pretty much just took the logic from the other one. So what are we doing? We're telling the user to enter a number, and we're converting it to an integer. All right. If the number is divisible by 2, we're saying it's even. Otherwise, we're saying it's odd. Let's grab this, comment it out. Let's grab this and comment it out. And let's put these back in as interpolated strings. So I'm going to say here, write line. And it should still work just fine. Let's double check. 3 is odd. Just doing one more. And do 34, which is even. So that works. All right. So you now have all of these. Let me close this. So we went over 9 different examples right here fairly quickly, granted. All right. But I wanted to show you a couple things now. And I was looking for something during the break to see if I could find it. So let's see. Of course not. Here it is. Great. In fact, let me take it and drag it here, copy it. I'm going to send this to you later today. Yes, that's what I want. Great. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to take this pretest, this whole folder that we just created. All right. So you can see it's got a Git thing on there, and that's important. And inside of here are all 9 of the pretests that we just did. All right. So I'm going to open that up. I still have this one open. And I'm going to show you, don't do this, but I'm going to show you what I have to do in order to be able to put this out on GitHub where you can grab it. All right. And it's not hard. I'm going to have to do 2 things first. I'm going to say here, I did my git init. So that means that I now have a folder in here that's called .git. All right. So I am going to be able to communicate between Git and GitHub in a moment. Now I have to add everything into that folder basically, or references to everything. So I say git add dot, which means everything. Now, if it comes back like that, sometimes it may come back with a message or several messages, but if it comes back like this, it worked. All right. Now what I have to do is I have to do what's called commit this. We're going to go over all this in just a minute. So I have to say git commit -m AWD1100 pretest number 1. All right. Okay. Now it's telling me basically what it's adding there. So this is what I have to do. Now you're going to have to do some of this stuff. Not yet. Okay. If you try it right now, it's not going to work. Now I've fixed this in that I can go out to GitHub now. So I have to create a new repository. What the heck is that? Basically, I want the ability to take everything that I did during class today and put it out on the internet where each and every one of you, all right, without having to sit there and put it into a zip file and then email it to you. Could I do that? Well, how big is this? It's only 1 meg, and after I zip it, it's not even going to be a meg. So yeah, I could have done that. I could take it and just put it in a zip file and email it to you. But what you're going to find is when we start working on our programs, they're going to get big, way too big for you to be emailing back and forth. All right. So what I'm going to do is back here on GitHub, notice out here it says new. I can either click this button or I can go up to here where there's a plus sign and I want to make a new repository right now. So I can do either this or this. I do this because it's handy. All right. Now it says, what do you want to do? Now you probably will get a choose an owner. You might not, but with me, it's me. It's not Rankin. It's me. You may not get this, and that's okay if you don't. All right. And I'm going to call this what? I'm going to call it C# pretest. All right. And it says your new repository will be created as C- pretest. Well, I don't like that. So I'm going to write the word sharp in here. And now it says it's going to be called C#. Notice it says it's available. If I already had a file by that name, or a folder rather by that name, a repo or a repository, it'd give me an error and say, you can't do that. But I could call it something. So if I had a C# pretest already, I could call it, for example, C# pretest 2 or C# pretest spring 24. I could do that. All right. Now, that's what it's going to be saved as. When you go through here and you do yours, and we're going to go through an example in just a bit, you're going to choose private. All right. Which means that nobody can see it but you, and then you're going to have to send me an invite to it. I take all my stuff and I make it public. Why? Because I'm sharing it with everybody. I want you all to be able to get to it. So JP Scott Rankin, C# pretest, public. Now, I click the button down here that says create repository. And this is going to, there, that changed up here. All right. Now, guess what? We already did the git init. I did that earlier and I showed you that. I already did the git commit. The branch, you only need to worry about that branch thing if you're working with other people and you're not in here. So we can skip that. This README, you can go in and add a README file. And the MD stands for Markdown. It's a simple language that you can use. So if you want to put a comment in, you can. I'm not going to. So I'm going to grab this second last line right here, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. So I'm going to right mouse click and choose copy. All right. Then I'm going to come back to here. Let me clear this screen, and I'm going to paste that line in. All right. And hit enter. Now, you might say, well, what the heck did that do? I'm going to type in here, get remote -v. And what that says is, oh, right now, when I'm in here, when I'm in this screen, I'm in Git. I'm in Git. That's the thing we loaded first on last Wednesday. When I'm in this screen right here, I'm in GitHub. So what this is telling me is, well, when you want to go and communicate between Git and GitHub, this is the path. So you'll be under https://github.com/jpscottrankin/c#pretest.git. All right. Now there's nothing in that repository right now. I made it, but there's nothing in it. So I'm going to take that other line here. This is going to be confusing. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules. I'm just playing the game. All right. And that is the most of you, if not all of you, are going to then type in this when you create your own repository. You'll put in that git space push space -u space origin space main. Let's go over what each one of these mean. Git means it's a git command. Push means that you're sending it from your machine to your GitHub account. U is for user. You're always origin. Now, unfortunately, since, forget about unfortunately, we live in a politically correct world. Back when I first created my GitHub account, I had to type in this. But over time, people have come back and said that's a very derogatory term. And master and slave is derogatory. I'll give you that. All right. But since I made this years ago, I still put in master. Most of you will put in main. Try it with main. If it doesn't work, try it with master. Now, when I hit enter, it's going to spin for a little bit. It says, oh, I'm going through it. I'm going to do all that stuff. Okay, boom, I'm done. So now if I come back here to GitHub, it looks like nothing's happened until I refresh my screen. And says, do I want to add a README? Well, I can. I don't have to. All right. And I'll just say C# pretests for AWD1100 programming fundamentals with C# class Rankin. Let's see, Rankin Technical College, spring 2024. Jeff Scott, instructor. And one more thing I want to add, and that is online. Hit enter. No. So commit changes there. This is all new. I'm just telling you this stuff that they're putting in here. This was not in here a month ago. So commit changes. And what does it say? I now have a folder in here that's got all the pretests in it. They're all in there. Now, what does that mean for you? All right. That means that in a couple minutes, and please don't do it yet, but if you go out to this URL that I'm going to put up on the screen right now, if you go out to this URL right there, and you don't need the HTTPS, but if you go out to that, all right, and you shouldn't need any of that either, all right? If you go out to there, try this again. All right, so if you go out to there, you should be able to copy everything that I just did, all right? And you should be able to copy it to your machine. Now, I'm gonna sit and talk for about 10 or 15 minutes about Git and GitHub, all right? I'm gonna go over this that I'm gonna send you in just a bit, but before I do, there actually is something that is built into Visual Studio. So if I bring up our pretests again, all right, there is stuff that's built right into Visual Studio to be able to use Git and GitHub. I don't use it. All right. And I don't use it because when I've tried to show it to students in the past, there's a lot of confusion. So I did it the way that I just showed you. Now, with that said, if you decide that you want to go out on your own and you want to take a look at how to do this, all right, Visual Studio and GitHub together. This is one of the two URLs that I sent you in the email this morning, and they go through how to do it. All right. Do you have to use it? You never have to. But if you think that'll be easier, you can take a look through here and you can do it this way. If you look at it and are like, I don't get that at all, then don't use it. All right. I also found this. Now, I tried this yesterday. It says, welcome to the GitHub in Visual Studio Learning Series. I put my email address in there, jpscott@rankin.edu. And United States, and I said, yeah, I'll even accept your garbage, and submit. All right, it says, thank you for your submission. And it says reload. Of course, I don't want to reload. All right, this is the other URL I sent you this morning. The reason I'm showing you this is when I went through here, I waited all day yesterday and it never sent this to me. So why am I showing it to you? Maybe it'll work for you, but this supposedly is an entire series of several videos that the people from Microsoft made, how you can use GitHub with Visual Studio. You've got the URL for that as well. All right. I also sent you this morning in the email that you received 2 different URLs. All right. And actually, I guess that's what I just went over there with you. Okay. So I gave you those if you want to go through them. Now, what I'm going to ask that everybody in here does right now, I'm going to assume that on day 1 in here, you were all able to go out. If you did not have Git on your system, that you were all able to go out and put Git on your system. If you didn't, for whatever reason, all right, then you can go out onto here and you can go out to git-scm.com. You can go out to right here. We did this on day 1. So you can go out to right there, git-scm.com. All right. If you didn't already do this, if you've done it already, just forget just tune me out for a minute or two. All right. And if you go out there, you can just choose right here. I'm assuming you're all using Windows, the download for Windows, and just accept every single default option that you are given. every default option. It says you want to do this, hit enter. You want to do this, hit enter. Just keep doing that. All right. That will install Git onto your system. Git is what's known as an SCM, or a source control manager. That's what the SCM there stands for. All right. Now, like I said, I'm assuming that you all did that, or you can do it. Maybe you're doing it as I'm speaking. But one thing I mentioned was to test it, go out onto your desktop and find an empty area on your desktop. All right. Then right mouse click in that empty area and choose Open Git Bash here. Not the first one, the Git GUI, Open Git Bash here. And if it looks something like this, your path, of course, will be different because you're not Jeff Scott. All right. But if you've got this, that's where you should be. Now, one thing I didn't tell you on day one, and I wish I would have, but I didn't. I'm telling you this right now. There are two commands that we're going to have to put in here. You only have to put each command in one time. And please don't put it in. Let me explain it first. All right. So the first command that you will put in, you'll put in git spacebar config spacebar -- global space user period or dot name space, then put your first name and your last name in double quotes. So for me, I would do this. Now, none of you are named Jeff Scott, so don't put that in. All right. And after you put it in, hit enter. If it comes back with just your prompt like this, it worked. All right. Basically, what that's doing is you're letting the system know your username. Now, you can say, wait a minute, that's not what you told us to use as a username. That they just want your regular name in there. And we're going to put in one more command that's going to be very similar to that one. And that is, it wants your email. I'm going to ask that each of you put in here, please, your Rankin email. All right. And now my Rankin email is different than yours, of course, but yours should be your first initial, middle initial, last name at inside what is _rankin.org, I believe. I don't know why they don't set everybody's emails up the same in here. I wish they would. Mine is jpscott@rankin.edu. All right. I think everybody should have that, but they don't have it that way. This is setting up the email that you are using, and that is the name that you're using. Now, with that said, I think I've gotten maybe in like 5 or 6 years, 3 emails from Git. All right. And that's because they started changing some internal stuff. That's the only reason. So you need to put in these 2 things. You only need to put them in once. I mean, I've got them in already, but I put them in again. It doesn't hurt. All right. But the only time you should have to put it in again is if for some reason you had a bad copy of Git and you had to uninstall it and reinstall it. All right. But with what you're doing, and this goes for next semester and your time, the rest of your time here, you shouldn't have to do it again. All right. All right. So that is that. Now, there are a few other commands you're going to have to know about in here. This one I've already shown you. So when you're starting a new session of Git, all right, you say git init. When you want to add things that you're eventually going to put out to the internet, if you want to throw everything you've been working on, like your whole project out there, it's git add dot. If you only wanted to put in a file, maybe I had just a file in here that was called hello.txt or something like that, then I could do that. All right, but normally you'll put in a period there. Okay, after you do that, what happens, as it says here, is you're putting it into what's called a staging area. What that means is that, hey, I want to put this thing out into GitHub, but it's not there yet. One thing it needs is a commit and a message, and that's what the -m is for. If you remember, when I showed you this with mine, that was my commit message right there. All right. Okay. This right here, you should never have to key in. That is, if you remember, when I started going through this, I copied over a couple lines. The one that you see highlighted is the second last line. God put there for me and I copied it over. If you want to check to make sure it's correct, you can put in this command. This you only have to worry about is if you screwed this one up, you can reset it here. This you're going to have to read. Again, I'm going to send you this, but as it says, it's a thing from GitHub itself that explains how you send an invitation for what you're working on to somebody else. I'm the somebody else. All right. Finally, to push it out there, you're going to either say git push -u origin master, or most of you will say main, not in parens, but you'll replace the word master with the word main. Here's a couple that are a little bit dated now, but some Git cheat sheets and some other stuff if you're interested in it. I will send this out to everyone. All right, this file along with the email that I send out at the end of class. So you will all get a copy of it. All right, let's try this quickly as a class. So I'd like you all, please, to do this. All right, I'm going to assume that you've got Git set up. I'm going to assume that you've got GitHub set up, and I'm going to assume you just put in those two commands for setting up your username and your email that I just showed you. All right, but to test and make sure that you're able to do this, I want you all to try this. Go ahead and start up Visual Studio. So start up a new session of Visual Studio. All right. And I'm going to go up here. I'm just going to create a folder. And I'm just going to call it first test. You can call it whatever you want. Your GitHub repo is empty. So I called mine first test. Then I'm going to come in here and create a new project. All right. It doesn't matter the kind, but I'm going to create a Windows Forms app. I'm going to call it test app. I'm going to put it in my folder that's called first test. All right. And I'm going to put in the solution name, test app is just fine to keep that in there. All right. Then I'm going to click create. Now this is a totally empty form. All right. Just so there's something in there, I'm going to put a button in here. I'm not going to change the name of the button. I'm not going to change the text in the button. I'm not going to change a flaming thing. But when I double click the button, I want it to just say message box dot show, and I'm going to put hello in there. That's it. Just so there's something, some code in there. All right. And I'm going to quick run it, make sure it works. Hello. Okay, it works. Good. All right. So I'm assuming everybody was able to do that without any trouble. All right. I'm going to do a file save. All right. and I'm going to quit this. I'm going to get out of it, so I'm going to close it. All right, it was called first test, as you can see. Now, I'm going to double click on the folder. I'm going to double click on the folder. All right. Now I'm going to run through the same steps that I did before. In that, I'm going to first come in here and I'm going to right mouse click in my folder area, and I'm going to choose here. I'm going to choose here, open Git Bash here, and there it's open. And unlike before, it's now open, but it's open under first test. Now I should have made that a lowercase, but it doesn't matter. All right. And now I'm going to type in git init, and you'll see once I hit enter, I'll have a git folder there with it, this .git. There it is. All right. Now I want to take everything that's in that project right now and make it ready to go and send out to the internet. So I'm going to type in git add dot and hit enter again. Again, you may get a message when you do that. If you do, it's okay, unless it's an error message. So I've done a git init and a git add dot. Now I'm going to do a git commit -m, and I'm going to call this GitHub test. You can call it whatever you want. And I'm going to hit enter. And it's showing me all the files it's about to send over there. All right, there's what I typed in, git commit, -m git. All right, now don't do anything else yet, because I'm going, if you would jump back into GitHub, If you weren't there, open up a new folder and type in github.com. All right, GitHub is changing a lot of their stuff. They're working with two-factor evaluation and some other stuff. I might be getting stuff that you're not getting, or you might get it. I don't know. All right. I'm hoping for your sake you don't, because it's a pain in the butt. I have to go grab something off my phone every time I want to use GitHub now. All right. So we called our folder first test. Okay. So what I'm going to do is back in GitHub here, I'm in GitHub. I'm going to click new. I'm going to go to choose an owner. And if you don't have that, there's nothing to choose. But I want me, and I want it to say first test. Again, you should have nothing in yours, so it should be available. All right. I'm going to make it public. I want you to make yours private. I share everything. You should be sharing with me and not with anybody else. All right. So once we get down to the bottom, I'm going to click create repository. And it has created it. There it is. But I want to come up here now. We did the init. We did the commit. We don't need a branch, but grab this line that says git remote, add origin, etc. Highlight that thing and do a Control-C to copy it. Then paste it into here. You can't do a Control-V to paste. You have to do a right mouse click and paste. Then hit enter. If you want to verify that that worked, do a git remote -v, and it should show you the same thing as what's up there. All right. Now, the only other thing you have to do to send it over there is to say git push -u origin. You'll probably say main. I say master. Probably all of you will say main. If you try using main and it doesn't work, try master. If you try using master and it doesn't work, use main and hit enter. Okay, it didn't take hardly any time at all. Then go back into go back here into GitHub, hit your refresh button, and your new one should be there. I'm not going to add a README. I don't know if you can, well, I'll just do this and I'll tell it test. Boom. Commit changes. All right. And commit changes. And there is my GitHub test. All right. Now I want to show you one more thing. Okay. If you went through all that stuff and it didn't work, and you are 100% sure you did all the steps correctly, it'll be your responsibility to email me and let me know what went wrong. And I'll try to work you through with what has to be done here. All right. Now, every one of you, now you should all be able to get in. Let me give you the right name. Let's see. Get back into GitHub here. You don't have to do this. All right. There it is. Yep. I would like all of you to go back into just GitHub proper. And if nothing else, just type in here github.com or even open it up in another window. It doesn't matter. But I want yours to look somewhat like this. Maybe not totally, but somewhat. All right. Then what I want you to paste in here, and I'm going to show it to you here. Let me move this, not that. I'll show it in a second. Oh, creeps. Where are you? All right. Oh, it is there. Okay, I got to make this smaller. All right. So if all of you would copy that in, it's in one line. I'll make this a little smaller. So if you would type that in, make it about 60. Oh, geez. All right. If you would type that in, okay, then what should happen, and I'm going to try typing it in. I don't know how it'll work on my own machine, but I'll try it anyway. All right. Is it should look like this, but you've got me there. All right. JP Scott, Rankin, etc. Then what you do, and there's different ways of doing this, but I'm going to try to show you what I consider to be the easiest way to do it as possible. All right, so from right here, click code, click download zip, and what that will do is in your downloads folder, that will take a copy of everything we've done today, and you've got it there now in a zipped file. So you have to take it and unzip it, but you will then have everything that we have done today. What I am going to do, not this second, but today, is I'm going to also take, if you remember, we also had, where did I put it here? Practice, our C# practice, and our C# homework. I'm going to take those, I think the practice one, I think not the homework, that's what you're supposed to do. But I'm going to take the practice one and I'm going to put that out there as well. All right, so you'll have that out there and you'll get to it the same way. You'll put in this kind of thing, but instead of saying C# pretest, it'll say C# practice. All right, and then you can do the same kind of thing. Also, what I'm going to do, let's see. I don't know where I have it. That's why I'm looking. I think it's here. This is the extra exercises that come with Murach. This are the projects that come with Murach, and these are your written tests. I want to make sure I'm giving you the written test that doesn't have the answers in them. All right, but I believe that's it. I'm going to send that out there as well. So when you this morning, when you get the email from me by about 12 o'clock that says this is what we did today, etc., it'll have 2, 3, or 4 different URLs out there that will have GitHub repositories that I have created for this class. All right. Now, I sent this out this morning, and I said several students have been having problems with some parts of this class, saving work, getting weird errors in their code, etc. Let me say something about this. If you decide, let's pretend you were working on this morning, so you're working on it with me, all right? And so in your C# pretest folder, all right, let's say that you have all those files in there. But when you were working on pretest 01_02, you had an error. When you go to run any of these files, it's going to come up with the error that you had in that file, even if you're not in it, because it's all part of the same solution. So if you were trying to follow along with me and you run into an error where your program will not compile, you get error messages, then take that part of the code that's not working and comment it out. You know how to comment. We've talked about this already. All right. Now, 2 more things, and then we're pretty much going to wrap it up for today. All right. First, things are going to happen in here where you're occasionally at least going to get weird errors. And not to scare you, but if in summer, you're taking the AWD1100 class, which is using C# to write apps that run in the browser, you're going to get some of these same errors and some different ones. All right. This is a Microsoft product. Microsoft does a lot of good stuff, and they have a lot of stuff that they do that I don't particularly like. All right. If you're working on a project and something's like, hey, I think I'm doing this right, but for some reason it doesn't appear to be working, you're probably going to have to send me a copy of whatever it is you're working on, and then I'll try to work through it to help you. Some of you have already been doing that. Totally fine. Now, I put in here, I believe we could use 1 additional day of practice. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. What we're going to do tomorrow is, if you've already been watching some of the earlier videos I did that were based on the PowerPoints of the book, all right, I started writing a payroll application. I'm going to work on that payroll application tomorrow. All right, everything I do again will be saved. It'll be saved out to a GitHub repository. All right. And I'm going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to write a payroll application. I'm going to write it both as a GUI or a Windows Forms app and as a console app to give you hopefully yet even more practice. Then, as it says on your screen right now, on Thursday by 7 a.m., I will email you the first test. Okay. Now, people always say, well, is it going to be hard? Well, again, hard's a relative term. I don't think most of the problems on the test, there's either like 3 or 4, I don't know. One of them is like literally a total of 2 lines long, all right? And I think each one of them is worth 25 points, even the one with just a couple lines in it. That's what you're going to be doing on Thursday. So I will email you the test, all right, by 7 a.m. Now, that shouldn't have said tomorrow because tomorrow isn't the 18th, on Thursday. Then the way I do this is we go over the test instructions from 8:05 until 8:20. And that shouldn't say tomorrow. All right. I will save this stuff as a private video. Some of you had problems with the video opening up a private one. If that happens, you must let me know right away. So the rest of the period on Thursday then will be lab. So after 8:20, you get 3.5 hours of lab time to work on the test. I'll be online the entire morning. So if something doesn't make sense, just email me. The only way I would break in and talk to everybody would be if there was an error in the test, and I don't think there are any errors in the test. I didn't write it. Other than that, on Thursday, afternoon, I will be checking my emails as they come in. I go to bed at 10. The program is going to be due by midnight. All right, this will be the only time that when you're working on this, you can either try to put it out to GitHub like we just looked at yourselves, or you can take your folder, zip it, and email me the zip folder. All right, after this first test, all homework, etc., is going to have to be sent through GitHub. That is one of the things you're supposed to be learning in this class. We will do it again tomorrow in this payroll thing that we'll go over. Then on Friday, we'll start going over chapters 4 and 5. I should have said from the Murach text, not test, but whatever. And we'll continue with those next week. All right. Please remember, as it says, your first test will be given now on Thursday, and it'll be due on Thursday. I am expecting to get 17 of these on Thursday. I don't want, hey, I couldn't do it because of this. I couldn't do it. Just do it. All right. Eventually, within a day or a couple days, I'm going to go over the test itself. Once I do that, it's not fair for me to accept people turning it in late because I've gone over it already. All right. And then finally, your completed Murach homework, and we went over all the homework together. I did that, I think it was Thursday of last week, and the written tests. And what we'll do is I'll have you bring up those written tests tomorrow. We'll do maybe the first one as a class together. So you know what we're looking for. We'll do that. And so your homework and your written tests, those will be due by midnight on Sunday. So do I stay up till midnight? No. But you do get, for lack of better words, pretty much a timestamp when you do this. So Monday morning, I'll look, and if you've turned in absolutely nothing, I will mark you absent. All right? You only get 2 absences. You may or you may not remember on day 1 in here, we went through, where the heck is that? Our syllabus. And it says in here, under attendance, students are expected to attend. Well, again, it's a little different. And so I added this caveat, this note at the bottom. This is an online class. You're expected to watch the lectures live or on tape. As it says, homework labs and/or Hands-on tests are given weekly. If you turn in something for that week, you're marked present. If you turn in nothing for that week, you're marked absent. And they're really, 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 administration is getting on us about this to say, hey, if they turn in nothing, you mark them absent. You get a maximum of 2 absences. Now it says before the constructor is required. It's not that I want to do this. If I don't fill out the paperwork within a day or two, I get emails from the main office at St. Louis saying, John Smith has missed 2 classes. You must drop him from your class. If that happens and you think you've got a viable reason, you can appeal this. If that becomes an issue, email me and ask me what you have to do to appeal it. I'm hoping for few, if hopefully none of you, that'll be an issue. All right, that is everything. So again, last time, tomorrow, I am going to create a payroll program, and I'm going to create it first as a console app. Then I'm going to go back and recreate it as a payroll app. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, we did about 5 or 6 practice problems, 9 problems today as a pretest. Hopefully between all this stuff, you're going to have enough notes and the like that you will have enough stuff to go by when you take your test. All right. As always, if you have any questions or if something does not make sense to you, please email me as soon as possible. We'll try to work our way through it. All right. So with that said, have a good rest of the day. I will see you tomorrow at 8:05. Thanks.